You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Okay, we're live on the air with Combat Radio. With us on the phone is one of my all-time favorite directors, one of the people that are instrumental for me being in this business, and now a lot of fans are cursing you, Michael, Mr. Michael Winner from the UK. How are you today, Michael?
Well, I'm speaking from the UK, where it's night, and I'm as well as I'm pretty well, thank you.
I want to bring our audience up to speed real quick. You have been responsible for directing Marlon Brando, Orson Welles, Faye Dunaway. You brought us Death Wish, one of my all-time favorites, The Mechanic, one of my favorite westerns of all time, Chato's Land, which is a movie I can't believe and get into later. But also sitting with me today, Michael, in the booth is an actor you hired once upon a time for Death Wish 3, Mr. Ricco Ross.
Oh, he's lovely.
What's up, Michael?
How are you, Ricco? We're very fond of Ricco. Nice to see you. Well, not see you. Nice to hear you.
Nice to hear you, too. You sound exactly the same.
Well, it was true.
You know what, I'll tell you, Michael, we had Ricco on the show before, and he was telling us some very, very hair-raising stories about your directing style. Very respectable. What is Ricco like, real quick, Michael, if you would, as an actor? What was the hiring process with Ricco? Was he a handful as an actor, or was he good?
No, he's a great professional. A great professional and a damn good actor.
Thank you.
And he was just a pleasure to have on the set. Everybody liked him. And that's very important, you know, because you have a good actor. But I haven't had any good actors who were difficult. They were all terrific, but Ricco is top of the line. I adore him.
Oh, thank you, Michael. And you know what I like about Michael is one of those no-nonsense directors. He gets there and he gets the job done, and when you see the energy that he's bringing and the focus and the drive, you can't help but just say, okay, this is a job. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. And sometimes when you're working on a film, you know, things can go wrong and people get all excited, and sometimes actors can be prima donnas, but when you're working on a winner film, you know, this is a job. We're going to make it happen. No matter what happens, we're going to cross that hurdle, you know.
Well, what do you say to that, Michael?
You know, you were talking about Chato's Land, which I made with Bronson and Jack Palance.
Yes, love it.
A runner on that picture was John Landis.
You're kidding me.
And I hardly knew he was there. And he phoned me up recently. He's making a film in England called Burke and Hare about the body snatchers, the murderers who sold bodies.
Uh-huh.
And he offered me a small part. and in this part, I'm playing a nobleman in a coach. And Burke and Hare caused the coach to go over a cliff, killing everybody in it. So I think that's wonderful, isn't it? I give the man his first break in 1970 in movies, John Landis. He repays me by throwing me over a cliff.
Yeah, what about that?
I mean, please.
You know, I got to tell you, on a side note, Landis aside, that Western, Chato's Land, is, to me, remarkable. I remember coming home from school, and that was on the television, and the movie had just started with Bronson blasting those people, and I remember thinking to myself, good heavens, this is how the movie starts? It was like the movie started with a bang-up ending and got better from there. It's one of my favorite Westerns of all time.
Thank you.
How'd you like working with Bronson? You worked with him several times.
I worked with Charlie, I think, at least 6 times. And it was quite funny, because the first time I worked with him was on Chato's Land.
Yeah.
And dare I say it, well before he met her, his wife was one of my girlfriends, Jill Ireland. And I came on the set in Almeria, Spain. And Jill, who was the most marvelous human being, said, it's so nice to have old friends, Michael, like you. I'll need them when Charlie's gone. I said, well, where's he going? We've only just arrived to start the film. Is he going somewhere? She said, well, he's very old, you know, he's going to die. I said, well, he's only 52. She said, you don't believe that, do you? I said, Charlie knocked 8 years off his age. The answer is, we finished the film, I had dinner with him every night, and people said to me, well, how do you get on with Bronson? I said, well, of course, I don't know. I mean, I spent a lot of time and I liked him, but I didn't necessarily get the feeling he was mad about me. And literally a very few weeks after that movie finished, I got a phone call, it was then from Columbia, saying, we're making a film called The Mechanic, and Charlie Bronson insists you come to Hollywood and direct it. Well, the film switched to United Artists, I directed it, and from that moment on we were genuinely very close until he sadly died, and the last many years of his life he had Alzheimer's, so he didn't know anybody.
No, that's too bad. Yeah, he He was really special in The Mechanic, too. That's one of my all-time favorites as well.
Well, they're remaking it, which slightly upsets me.
Yeah. What is it about you that what is it about it that upsets you particularly?
What, that it's remade?
Yeah. Give me your take on that.
Well, because at the moment it's My Mechanic. It's Michael Winner's film, The Mechanic.
Right.
The minute the other film comes out, at best I have to share it.
Yeah.
And they've got Jason, what is his name? Jason, the other fellow's name. What's his name?
Statham.
Jason Statham, who I don't know that well, but funnily enough, it's being directed by an Englishman who used to live in a place called Letchworth, Hertfordshire, which is where I went to school for 11 years. So there's a coincidence. The second Mechanic is being directed by someone from much the same town as I spent a lot of my life in.
Well, why didn't they just contact you?
You know, in the real world, the spotlight moves on and they want younger people. There are very few directors of my age, I hate to say it, I'm 74, who are still directing. I bumped into one of them at lunch and a long chat last Saturday. That's Ridley Scott. He's still going, bless him. Mm-hmm. But not many of them are. Mm.
Let me ask you.
I do a lot of commercials here.
Yeah.
I'm very famous here, dare I say it. I star in the commercials. And they've just given me my own TV series here, Peak Time, 1 hour show. But that's, at least I keep busy, you know.
Good.
Hey, Michael, I remember when we were making Death Wish that Charles also, his wife was having some medical issues.
Well, she had cancer.
Right.
And she thought she had recovered. And it was then, which upset Charlie deeply, that there began to be signs that it was coming back.
Right.
And that was the medical issue, and it did come back. And so a few years later it killed her. She was very young. Terrible thing to happen. She was the most vibrant, beautiful. You know how beautiful was Ricco. You saw her. She came on the set frequently.
That's right.
And so he was a bit itsy on that, and I don't blame him. You know, you've gone through cancer with the wife. You think she's cured, and now she has it again. It's too terrible. And Charlie had to see. He lived in a hut, a mining hut, in a mining town with a family of 13, and he said, I had to see my father dying of cancer for 3 years. I never want to see that happen to anybody again, and sadly it did happen to Jill.
Right. I remember talking to him, and we were talking about a number of things, and then I asked him about his wife, and his whole demeanor just completely changed. I can see how that had affected him so dearly, and now it makes sense. Now that you say that his father had actually.
Well, it was a great love story, and sadly it ended not as they would have liked. They should have sailed into the sunset together. You know, it doesn't always happen. Life is not always as we hope it to be.
All right. Well, thanks for that insight, because I recognized that was when I brought her up, the kind of the pain that it instantly showed on him, and now it kind of makes
the
sense.
wonderful line of Charlie's on Death Wish 3. He had a lot of muggers to kill, as he did. I love Death Wish 3. It was very kitsch, very camp.
Yes.
And he had to kill all these muggers. You see, he had to run with this rather heavy World War II machine gun. And he said to me, you know, Michael, he said, my doctor says I mustn't run without getting into shape first. I mustn't run. And the machine gun is terribly noisy. It's very bad for my ears. I said, well, Charlie, darling, if you can't run and you can't fire a machine gun, you've got to kill another 56 muggers. What are we going to do? We'll have to open a hot dog stall. We'll have to food poison them.
Hilarious. You know, for our audience who may not be aware, Michael Winner has actually written a very, very entertaining and fantastic book. It's a biography. It's called Winner Takes All. It's an autobiography, excuse me. And in it are some great stories about working with not just Charles Bronson and Jack Palance, but you've got great stories about Christopher Walken on The Sentinel, a very, very, very under-acclaimed but very, very good horror piece, and stories about Marlon Brando and Orson Welles, and Oliver Reed, too. Fantastic actors, some of the titans. And I would recommend our listeners pick up this book, Winner Takes All, if you can find it, because it's remarkable.
Well, they'll find it on the internet.
Good.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.